Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, November the 8th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, we are a news podcast. We do try to get our sources from the most reputable areas with award-winning journalism. Not sensational news like Fox News or whatever left or right extreme sites you go to. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language. But let's be honest, words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we really start this? I know for a lot of us, if you're like me, you probably try to watch the You probably try to watch the Republican debate that's going on right now as we speak. And if you're like me, you're already annoyed. Of course, Governor Christie, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, that's not her real name. Vivek Ramaswamy is still spinning it. At the same time, there's a bunch of these guys up there right now who, again, are making it easy for a man right now who could possibly, above all else, still win the Republican election, still can win the Republican nomination. Donald Trump still could win. This is a man that's facing multiple indictments and still could win the election while you have 5 candidates right now speaking that are trying to get the Republican people to watch. I'm sorry, Tim Scott, which we'll talk about very soon, very, very up and close personal. Nikki Haley, we'll talk about her too. Trying to be front runners. Unfortunately, it's terrible. Nope, I didn't try to watch. I don't blame you, lady. You shouldn't try to watch. You shouldn't try to watch at all because it's gonna be 90% bullshit. Yeah, I don't understand it at all. It's nothing that, they got nothing to go off of. See, the thing about it is they have nothing to honestly go off of. So, with that being said, they got to do the one thing they always want to do. They have to hit the classics. We're going to talk about how the Democrats went out spending. We're going to talk about how Biden is caving to Hamas. We're going to talk about everything under the sun except everything bad the Republicans did. And then they go from there as far as their constant bickering, throwing shots at each other. Oh, Tim Scott, a black man trying to run for white man's Congress. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name because she's initially has an Indian name and decided to transfer to an American name because she wants to be accepted. Governor Christie, which I don't know why that man is still in Congress, and Vivek Ramaswamy is basically a YouTube star wanting to be a politician. That's basically it. But aside from that, like I said before, this is the 3rd Republican debate, and it's amazing. We went from a field of 11 to now 5. It's like playing Survivor and Big Brother if they were in the White House. It's about the best way I could put that. Anyway, there is some news we do got to cover, guys, because, again, I did talk about the Israel-Hamas war. I can say this as many times as humanly possible. Please do your research. Namely put, because if you do your research, there is a clear indication of who is the victim and who is the oppressor. And after I did mine, I realized Israel is not the victim they claim it to be. Because there is a lot of information that is being definitely shuttered out there. I highly implore you because, again, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more history in the Middle East than you may have found out in history books or in your classes. Trust me, the more you find out, the more your opinion of Israel will change. But because it's the Holy Land, the Promised Land, the so-called quote-unquote Christians, aka GOP, and some modern Democrats, for some reason, have to defend it. I don't know why. But anyway, but if you speak again, but here's the one thing. If you speak out against Israel, they like to censor you, like they did with Rashida Tlaib, a representative who just because of a measure that was brought up by crazy ass Marjorie Taylor Greene and enough Republicans and Democrats voted to have this woman censored.
not disposable. We are human beings, just like anyone else. My city, my grandmother, like all Palestinians, just wants to live her life with freedom and human dignity we all deserve. Speaking up to save lives, Mr. Chair, no matter faith, no matter ethnicity, should not be controversial in this chamber. The cries of the Palestinian and Israeli children sound no different to me. Why? What I don't understand is why the cries of Palestinians sound different to you all.
Rightly said. Because again, guys, that right there is Representative Rashida Tlaib, a Palestinian American representative in the House of Representatives, because she spoke out along with Ilhan Omar about the fact that not everything is all rosy with Israel. That the fact that Israel was the one that did the strikes, the fact that Israel was the one that's currently occupying areas that did move certain Palestinians into 3 different areas. The Gaza Strip, which you've probably heard a lot in your lifetime, is one of those places. At the same time, she's only pointing out that, hey, how is it that, whenever it comes to Israel, you're ready to go guns in, weapons in, all this stuff, but yet when Israel attacks Palestinians in Gaza, you get quiet. That's the only thing she's saying. And I think because of her heritage, I think she has a leg to stand on in the race. And again, guys, I keep pointing this out. When it comes to certain things, be informed. And I say at the beginning of this podcast, I sit there and say about not getting influenced by extreme news, because Fox News paints Palestine and Gaza like they're the second coming of bin Laden. Here's the problem when you have that kind of misinformation, especially for Fox News, because you heard me say it a lot on this show, Fox News is not a real news station. It was proven in court. The fact of the matter is Fox News is a extreme political right-wing tool that is used to scare grandparents and napkins. That's all it's designed to do. The reason why I say that, because of this story. A woman was arrested after driving her car into an Indianapolis building she thought was an Israeli school. Here's the thing. She sat there and said that this location there that you see right there, she believed because of her watching the news from the Israel-Hamas war. She believed that location was a teaching ground for a Palestinian terrorist cell. And she took it upon herself to use her vehicle to crash into said building, and then had the audacity to turn around and tell the police, "Oh, I thought it was a terrorist cell, and I planned to attack what I thought it was because I think that's terrorists there." And I know a lot of people are going, "Okay, that's one crazy ass, possibly white lady." You might be right, but where did she hear it from? She sat there and told police she was watching coverage of the Israel-Hamas war since the surprise attack on October 7th. Now, here's the thing I'm going to keep pointing out, and so true. I'm just saying. Here's the thing I keep pointing out, guys, about misinformation. Misinformation can be just as effective as validated information in the right hands, because that's not the only person. I'm pretty sure there's people out there right now. We even got through talking. There was even a story about one Palestinian child that was shot by a neighbor. The child was 7. I think the child was 8 years old. 8 years old, shot by his neighbor, only because out of fear. And again, this is Fox News at its finest. Fox News, Newsmax, and other ones out there think that there will be an imminent attack on the U.S. There won't be. There's nothing out there, and this comes straight not only from my knowledge. This comes straight from the Department of Defense, from the Secretary of Defense. The fact of the matter is, the fact that they have no basis for coming after us. As you can see, Israel has its own problems. See, right now, it's amazing how we talk about Israel as well. We talk about welfare queens out there. because certain napkins will sit there and say, well, we got to protect the welfare queens. Israel is the biggest welfare queen this side of Mississippi and Kentucky. Israel gets at least $3 billion from us annually. Not only that, now they're getting weapons and possible troops in that area. Now, keep in mind, the only reason that we have a deal with Israel is because we have 3 strategic bases in the region. Because we always fear that Putin may try something. That's the literal logic they try to go by. We have to occupy this space in case Russia ever wants to fuck around and find out. But the thing about it is, when you see this type of stuff out there, this misinformation, and you don't, and I try to tell people all this all the time, misinformation is an effective weapon. Don't believe me? Ask Donald Trump. Donald Trump used misinformation and white man rage to get into the White House and was able to disman enough people not to vote, but engage enough of his people to vote. He got enough people not to like a woman who was highly qualified to be president. Think about that for a second. A man whose claim to fame is reality stardom, failed businesses, multiple bankruptcies, and yet for 2 years of campaigning was able to tell American people that a woman who was a first lady, a state senator, a secretary of state, and has been around Washington and literally called everything right about Trump in the presidential debates. He got enough people to make sure they didn't vote for her or not vote at all. Why? Misinformation. That's why I keep pointing this out, guys. Misinformation is a very, very, very effective ass weapon. And it can be used here again, especially with the Democratic presidency coming up. With the presidential candidacy coming up for next year, because we might be getting Republican debates. At this point, there are very few Democrats that will stand up to Biden, and Biden looks like he might have a clean slate going into the next round. We're not sure about that. But again, I implore you, I cannot say this enough. Stay informed about everything that's going out there. Not to the point where you'll be misinformed and do something stupid, like shoot an 8-year-old child or run your car into the building thinking that it's a terrorist cell. But honestly, there's plenty of sources out there to where you can get your information. If you don't know them, ask. I'll gladly tell you. But at the same time, we cannot let misinformation guide us to do silly, stupid, or dumb things that could result in damages or even the most extreme case, loss of life. And again, we can keep going. Trust me, we could. But we have to keep rolling the stories. For all those that there were a lot of, especially for yesterday. Yesterday did actually have a lot of elections going on, voting decisions, things of that nature. I have to give 2 things to Ohio. Number one, Ohio put women first. This is the first time Ohio, after yesterday, will be the first state to enshrine abortion rights into their constitution, protecting women's rights to abortion. I have said it once. I have said it thrice. I have said it 4 times. I will say it again on this show. Hi, my name's Will. My show is How the Frack Got Here. We are pro-choice. On this show, we are pro-choice. Why? I'm not a woman, okay? I've never had to deal with a woman. I never had to deal with feminine problems. I never had to deal with anything the pressure that comes with a woman. So therefore, am I the appropriate person to speak a woman's rights? Hell no. I believe a woman should. I believe a woman should be able to talk. I believe a woman should have choice over her body. The choice and consequences should be hers and hers alone. If she wants to have a baby, have a baby. You don't want to have a baby? That's cool too. It is your choice. And that's how it should be. At the same time, I do believe that a man, and a lot of people get mad at me, but I'll say it anyway. I believe that when it comes to the rights and choices of a woman, a man should not interfere. And I say this all the time. If a man feels like he can interfere on a woman's body choices, switch that shit around and see what happens. I guarantee you will have men riding in the streets. That's all I'm saying. But again, I love the fact that we are in an age. Oh, thank you, Lenny. We are definitely in an age where a lot of people say, "Well, what about the bubble? Well, we're about the law." I said every time I hear this, my mind goes straight to George Carlin. You're not pro-life. You're pro-choice. You're not pro-life. You're pro-birth. You're pro-birth. That's exactly what you are. Because once that baby is born, you can care less what happens. Case in point, for all those people that care about babies being born, why is it that our adoption centers are full of children? Hello? I mean, that's the thing I keep pointing out. If you care about young children so much, why are adoption centers full to the brim? Why is every adoption agency out there in the U.S. religious based? Why is it that same-sex couples have to jump through more hoops than heterosexual couples to basically be able to sit there and say we would be great parents? Why is it that the pro-life people always seem to show up to intervene on a woman's body because they believe that literally the fetus needs to be spoke up to? But you know what's so funny? Once a child's born, you can't find them. Can't find them. They'll sit there and say, it's almost like here in Tennessee. Here in Tennessee, and this is why I point this out, just today, our state legislator voted against taking federal dollars to pay for student lunches. You want to know the reasoning? The reasoning is because their test grades have dropped dramatically. I cannot make this up. At the Tennessee State Legislature of Commerce right now, they passed a measure overwhelmingly all Republicans voted for to reject federal money for free student lunch programs because the students are not performing well. Let's not forget the fact that education has been on the back burner of Tennessee as they just now decided to build another $10 billion stadium, even though they already have two. They've ever actually created a football stadium for the Titans, which actually costs over $4 billion. The Music City Center, which is another $3 billion. So you're telling me you have money for sports teams, but apparently you have no money for education. Again, education's been in the toilet. Public education across the board. And this is why I say I feel for teachers. Teachers are still underpaid. Here in Tennessee, they still are. But you don't want to address that problem. You don't want to address the overcrowding. You don't want to address the fact that there's not the same type of assistance for educators. Not just teachers, but principals, staff, things of that nature. After school programs, music programs, vocationals like metal shop, wood shop, auto shop, those things are gone or almost close to gone. Or even 4-H programs, because students may want to be farmers too. There's nothing wrong with that. But those programs are gone or extinct. But it's amazing to me that even in my state of Tennessee, that they'll turn around and sit there and say, "Yeah, we don't need it because the grades are bad." So how the grades gonna get fixed then? Which says, I love what Ohio did. Ohio sat there and said, you know what? We're not gonna wait for Congress and the Supreme Court to get it right about abortion rights. We're gonna go ahead and make sure our state is taken care of, and from there, we'll be fine. Of course, if you're a woman in Ohio, you're extremely happy right now. But also, what do you say, Lanny? Why are they also pro-guns? Because Americans always have the fear that the government will come for their guns. And really quickly, it's funny as hell because I can't tell you. I have firearms, but I'm not. But let me tell you something. I always killed me and say, "Well, I don't want the government to come for my guns." The government can get better shit than your 2 measly AR-15s that you purchased at Bass Pro Shop. It's funny to me. Why do you think the government cares about what you got when they can get better shit? The logic makes no sense to me. But at the same time, that's another Republican tactic. That if we ever talk about gun laws or gun registration, what's the first thing they always sit there and say? Oh, they're coming for your guns. Barack Obama, when he was president, the black man's coming for your guns. Oh, if only. That would really scare the shit out of some of you napkins. It really, truly would. But again, I digress. But going back to Ohio for a second. Abortion rights wasn't the only thing Ohio got right. Ohio is going to get high. What I mean by that is Ohio actually, again, another measure that went out yesterday was that they voted to legalize recreational marijuana in Ohio. It overwhelmingly passed. So what that means is, kids, for all those that are paying attention to the places where you can go smoke weed in the U.S., let me bring up a picture real quick. So as you can see right here, guys, this is, of course, all the states that you see in dark green are medical and recreational. Of course, the light green is medical. So if you haven't noticed, Ohio has basically voted for medical and recreational. So in other words, Ohio just became the new Colorado, which means that, again, very soon, within the next year or so, I think, well, I'm sorry, not within the next year, because Ohio laws go into effect 30 days at their election. So 30 days from now, Ohio will be able to sell, grow, and pay taxes on weed. Congratulations, Ohio. You just made a lot of people in your country and your state very happy. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not a weed smoker. I'm not. I got plenty of friends who are. I will always be an advocate for cannabis, not just because of the fact that it helps out a lot of people. It is a great alternative to the high-priced anxiety medications and OxyContin and painkillers they try to put people on. It helps people out with PTSD. And not only that, the plant itself has a lot of mechanical and technological capabilities. But because of the war on drugs and because of some napkins out there, they believe that, marijuana is the gateway drug to hard drugs. Yet fentanyl, meth, and everything else under the sun seems to be getting a lot more coverage. But, blame weed. But I wanted to point that out, guys, because out of all 50 states, 38 states right now have some basis of medical marijuana or recreational. Again, I've got nothing against it. I think it's freaking great. But at the same time, people will sit there and argue, well, what's so great about weed smokers? Money. I point this out, and again, the reason why I point this out because I want somebody to say I'm wrong. Every state that has ever legalized marijuana has never had a loss in their financial books. They haven't had a loss. Colorado is giving away money. New Mexico giving away money. Ohio, I will call inside 3 years, will be giving away money to other states. Why? Because the sales on recreational marijuana. People out there just want to relax, and I can't knock them for that. At the same time, guys, again, with marijuana, it's simply put, it's one of those things where it's two parts. Before we get to our next story, it's one of those things about marijuana. It's two parts. Number one, if you legalize it, you also must decriminalize it, which means that for every state that has legalized marijuana, they have to decriminalize it, which means that if you are currently incarcerated for a marijuana-related charge that did not lead to loss of life, chances are you will probably get out. And unfortunately, in the South, because Tennessee is only good for two things: taxes and incarceration. And unfortunately, the corporate CCA, I should say, the corporation that actually holds private prisons, the most in Tennessee, actually has headquarters in Tennessee. They lobby every doggone year to make sure that marijuana does not become legal in Tennessee. Why? 90% of their prisons hold people on 90% of their prisons in which people are incarcerated in Tennessee have marijuana charge. Imagine what would happen if Tennessee decriminalized marijuana. CCA would go out of business. And that's the thing. They don't want to sit there and say the quiet part out loud. That if we legalize marijuana, that goodbye to the very popular, to the very lucrative incarceration system that states and corporations have had that have made money on. Again, CCA being one of them. But I digress. Congratulations, Ohio. Y'all guys got two things right. So I can't sit there and complain. Again, it'd be a great time to invest in weed companies. That's all I'm saying. Wait a second, Laney, y'all would get stopped and frisked. To a certain, that's the thing though. They could to a certain extent, but legalizing it means that they can't stop you for it anymore. Now, again, that's not saying you could have copious amounts. You are allowed a certain amount when you're out and about. Let's not pull a Leon Lett and have almost 900 pounds of marijuana in your car. That's all I'm saying. But I'm glad you did bring up pro guns, Laney, because the next story I got, guys, is basically about the Supreme Court doing something it should have done a long time ago, reviewing the fact that those that were in domestic violence cases having access to firearms. Gee, it only took us till 2023 to actually get that on the docket.
So glad you're streaming with us. Well, as if victims of domestic violence haven't suffered enough. Now imagine allowing that abusive partner or spouse to legally have a gun. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Well, that may now change because it appears that the Supreme Court will preserve a federal law that prohibits people under domestic violence restraining orders from having guns. Let's bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Devin Dwyer, for more on this case. So this is definitely one of those blockbuster cases of the year.
One of the
we're
biggest,
paying close attention to.
One of the biggest cases of the year, very close attention, Kira. This was a major test of one of the most popular gun restrictions in the country. It's been on the books for 30 years, and it's a federal law that prohibits anyone under a domestic violence restraining order from buying a gun. Those records are fed into the background check system, and you can't buy a gun. The FBI says the system has blocked 77,000 attempted firearm purchases since 1998 by domestic abusers. And public health experts have told me that they see a measurable decline in that time in a number of deaths of women by their domestic abusers. So this is widely seen as a good measure. But today at the Supreme Court, they heard a challenge to that law brought by a Texas drug dealer who's in prison right now. He's facing gun charges. He was abusive to his girlfriend, but he said there is no historical precedent for this law. And the Supreme Court says gun laws have to have ties to history. So that's what today's debate was all about.
So what do you think? Where do you think justices are leaning?
It was pretty clear today. This is a tough case to say you're going to knock down this law and side with the abusers. It was clear there was at least a majority to uphold the law. So huge relief among gun safety advocates. But how narrow do they keep this? It did seem like the conservative justices, Justice Barrett, Justice Kavanaugh, were inclined to keep the law in place, but do it narrowly, without violating the rights of what the gun rights groups say are nonviolent people that are getting swept up in this. They presented the case of divorce courts and rushed disputes between a husband and wife, and the judge just saying orders against both of you. And so the other side's argument is that this process doesn't allow effective due process. You don't get a chance to have your say in court. There's no conviction involved here. It's some family court judge slapping a protective order on two people and you can't have a gun. They say the women should be able to get a gun. Sometimes they can't. But that argument didn't seem to hold water today at the court.
And I expected it not to. Again, this is for this to be brought up, guys. Initially, for all those that don't know, if you do have a domestic violence case on you, whether it led to something, whether it's just a single case or it led to something more extreme, when you try to go for a gun, 9 times out of 10 you're blacklisted because of the fact you're a domestic violence case. Now, the reason why it's going to the Supreme Court, and I still can't believe I'm saying this, is that, as you heard in the story, a drug dealer who's currently on trial is challenging the law and saying that, okay, so you can't have a gun law without some history behind it. Really? Second Amendment ring a bell? Second Amendment is the greatest example of a gun law that did not have history tied behind it. When the Second Amendment was created, they pretty much sat there and said, hey, we basically don't want to be England, meaning that we don't want to be a tyrannical government that's going to oppress its people. We want to give the people the ability to defend themselves. And so the Second Amendment was created. That's it. That's all the history. At the same time, as we progress forward and that we start to do a lot more about how gun laws are handled, how legislation goes into place, that yes, if you are part of a domestic violence case, 9 times out of 10, you should not have a firearm. And usually that's been okay. I mean, sometimes they've been questioned or they've been appealed. And of course, as the journalist said, it goes into far litigation But here's the problem I have with this, is that the simple fact of the matter is, because the Supreme Court has surprised us this year, they surprised us, overturning Roe versus Wade, I won't say completely destroying affirmative action, but pretty much crippling it for college admission. Which, by the way, I'm going to be very not PC about this. You do understand that 5 Asians are the reason why affirmative action for college acceptance is gone. 5 Asians who couldn't get into an Ivy League school and claimed that it was. They claimed they weren't given a fair shot because of their heritage. Yes. And that's the reason why the Supreme Court sat there and said, you know what? Let's cut that off. And people don't, and it's funny when people say, well, that just affects college admissions. No, it does not. It affects everyone, especially if you are a diversity hire. And we all know who diversity hires are. And if you're one of them, with that law gone, that does not prevent a company from letting you go out of fear of not getting sued, just simply put, because that part of the law is no longer there. So what does that got to do with domestic violence? Well, pretty much if the Supreme Court could overturn parts of affirmative action, the scary part is in a conservative-leaning Supreme Court, they could rule against this and say, oh, well, we need to cut some parts off of this because, you know, some people just get a bad rep and they get that DA case put on them and they didn't deserve that. So let's cut this part off. That's what I'm afraid of. That you have a conservative-leaning Supreme Court, and again, conservatives, pro-gun, pro-family, pro-religion. It's always three somethings. They come in threes. This is why I keep saying it's kind of a danger whenever we see something the Supreme Court takes on, because usually when they make a decision, it is life-altering for a lot of people. And that is what I'm worried about. What do you say, Lainey? I'm talking about them now just stopping folks just because. Oh, they do that? And again, it's improbable cause. That's what I'm saying. It's another thing. And I wish checking was the whole thing of law enforcement, the fact of stop and frisk and that stuff. But I have to say that for another day because I had to keep the ball rolling. But no, lady, you're 100% right. It's amazing what the police can do. And it kind of goes into our next story where it's amazing. And I keep on saying this all the time. Whenever police do something or they're caught doing something where it leads to loss of life or it's extreme use of force or things of that nature, they either have accountability, they either have an excuse, or they have something that protects them, like immunity, classified quantitative immunity, which again, I wish they would get rid of, which we almost did get rid of if it wasn't for Tim Scott. The reason why I bring this up, guys, Elijah McClain, for all those that don't remember, quick recap, because this did happen last year. Elijah McClain was an African-American that was walking home, detained by two officers. One officer put him in a chokehold while two EMTs gave him a dose of ketamine. For all those that don't know, ketamine is a heavily powerful sedative. They usually give that shit to larger animals, not really to humans. Well, the reason why I'm talking about this, guys, is that yes, Elijah McClain did die, and did die, of course, from the ketamine dose and the complications of that. The officers themselves were again just having their trial. The two officers did get on trial. Unfortunately, a jury found them not guilty of the murder of Elijah McClain. So right now you have two officers. Again, this is on body cam footage. Body cam footage, everything else. Those two officers right now have been acquitted of all charges. The two EMTs that did deliver the dose to Elijah, their case still coming up, but two officers who stopped this man for no reason, who basically cornered him for no reason, put him in restraints and a chokehold for no reason. Those two same officers now are pretty much allowed to go back, pretty much back allowed to go protect and serve. They are. The mother, of course, disappointed, understandably so. She still, along with her lawyers, are hoping the DOJ will get involved, as they should. But it is amazing to me that people keep on telling me, because I have to think about law enforcement. It's called F the police. But it is amazing whenever law enforcement gets involved and a loss of life by an African American is done, what the usual go-tos? Oh, did you comply? Did he listen? Was he a threat? Why didn't he do everything the police? They do these straw man arguments because they have nothing else to go by. Because we have plenty of cases where Black men have complied and died. Black men have not complied, and the officers took it a little bit too far. We've seen where officers got the wrong man and still killed him. And those same officers got to walk. So it is amazing to me how people want to sit there and say, "Well, I think law enforcement should be given more grace." No, law enforcement needs to be held accountable. When you and again, I've said it before. I've said law enforcement around Nashville. Tell me I'm wrong. The fact that number one, the law enforcement in America is woefully needed reform. You train longer to be a plumber, a nail technician, or an IT tech person longer than you train for an officer. Most officers train for 6 months in the academy and they're out and about serving. Most officers have been trained to shoot to kill. Most officers have been trained to detain the threat or eliminate the threat. Most officers have never been taught de-escalation skills or how to recognize special needs or how to recognize those that may have mental instabilities. None of that training's been done. They have been trained and told to detain the threat and use lethal force if necessary. Oh, and by the way, with quantitative immunity, that means you don't have to give your testimony immediately. You can come back 48 hours later and give your statement. Messed up, isn't it, that an officer that takes a person's life has a couple of days to come back and think about it and then give their statement. Whereas anybody that's ever been arrested before, you don't get that same type of grace. At the same time, guys, we see stuff. I mean, we've seen murders that are continually happening at the same time. There needs to be a level of accountability. And thank you, Osmond. They are all accountable, as they should be. But at the same time, when it comes to the fact of getting justice for these black men that have been killed for no reason outside of an officer's need to be a dick, screams volumes. Even more so when you find out officers when we find out the true nature of officers, instead of them losing everything, they're allowed to quit. Like, say an officer that decided that I'm going to text racist things about people and I'm not going to say anything until I'm caught. Happened to this guy.
No longer on the force after authorities say they discovered racist texts that he sent to a colleague. That other person is on administrative leave pending an investigation. The texts were uncovered during a separate probe. Here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
Tonight, a 6-year veteran of the San Jose Police Department is off the force after authorities say he sent multiple texts containing racist slurs to a colleague. In a statement on Friday, the police chief saying Officer Mark McNamara is no longer employed with the city and calling the text disgusting. Authorities releasing 10 pages of text between an unidentified coworker and McNamara that shows McNamara making racist remarks. In one text, McNamara, who is white, says, "I hate black people." The discovery surfacing in the last days and hours during an unrelated criminal investigation, according to police. Some of those texts appearing to refer to an incident in March 2022. The officer shooting Keon Green 4 times after Green backed out of a restaurant holding a gun that he had wrestled from an armed suspect during a fight.
It hurts me and it scares me to know how much hate a person can have in their heart.
Tonight, Green's lawyer is demanding accountability, claiming the texts are not an isolated incident.
We also call for McNamara to be decertified as a police officer. He should not have the honor of ever carrying a badge and gun on behalf or in the community's name.
Tonight, the San Jose Police Officers Association saying in a statement, if these allegations are true, then this individual must face the sternest consequences possible, adding racism and those who perpetrate it have no place in our city and no place in law enforcement.
Lindsay, that union says McNamara resigned from the force. Meanwhile, authorities say the person who received those texts is a current employee, but now on administrative leave.
Well, welcome to How to Cover Your Tracks 101. That's all I can say. Welcome to How to Cover Your Tracks 101, gentlemen and ladies. Why are we surprised? The fact that, oh, by the way, I just got found out that I don't like black people, and those texts are now public. I'm going to resign. You know why he says that? You know why most officers resign before anything else happens? Number one, they get to keep their pension. Number two, they get to keep their certification. Like the man was saying, like the lawyer was saying in the video, a police officer, as long as they're certified, can pretty much work in any form of law enforcement across the U.S. That's the reason why he was going for decertification, which basically meant that, hey, you cannot work as a cop anywhere. However, I don't know if I want a cop that texts, "I hate all black people," and it's a wee bit trigger happy. I don't want him protecting and serving. But at the same time, you saw in the video, you really saw in the video how quickly they turned around and was like, oh, well, if this is true. What do you mean if this is true? You wouldn't be reporting it if it was. At the same time, look at I'm gonna say before, if you don't believe something, look at the histories of that past individual. Shot a black person that was actually trying to do the right thing and wrestle a gun away from an intruder only to turn around and get shot by a trigger-happy cop who decided to shoot first and ask questions later. At the same time, this is the same cop that may have tendencies. Like I said, when these cops get put under the internet, the scope of the internet, Twitter and every other place will be like, hey man, do your thing. And we find out more about these officers than they didn't want the world to know about. But I keep saying this all the time, guys. For the simple fact of the matter, there is one good way to solve all this. Number one, you want to attack the problem, but you also want to attack the money. What I mean by that is the police pension fund. If we tie the police pension fund and we basically use that as a payout system to the victims and the victims' families, I guarantee less of the stuff will happen. Because the last thing an officer wants gone is his pension. And if his pension is used to pay for another person's mistakes, that will drop dramatically. But at the same time, we have to get rid of things like quantum immunity. We have to get rid of this thing that seems to be assumed that every time law enforcement does something right, they're justified until proven incorrect. Whereas in this case, that's exactly what they did. You basically allowed him to resign, and the person that basically sent the text to, oh, well, they're on leave of absence. Gee, I wonder why. But at the same time, you're going to sit and tell me that law enforcement is completely okay with us, but they're pretty much still using us as target practice. Again, if you wasn't sure about me the first time, I'll say it again, F the police. Moving on. Trump, how can you say, let me tell you this really quickly, guys. If you are not following the Trump trial in Manhattan, number one, it is a definite ray of sunshine to see Trump not do what he always does. At the same time, he looks like a depressed toddler when he doesn't get his way. And so far, this trial in Manhattan is not going his way, especially when his ex-wife pretty much threw him out of the bus.
We have breaking news now. Things are getting heated between former President Trump and the judge as Trump testifies in the civil fraud trial against him, his older sons, and his business. The judge is visibly frustrated with Trump's answers, telling him, quote, "This is not a political rally. This is a courtroom." The judge has even demanded that Trump's lawyers, quote, "control their client." Now, keep in mind, this judge has already ruled Trump and his adult sons are liable for using false and misleading statements to conduct business. Now Trump's testimony could determine how they'll be penalized. Let's bring in ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci, ABC News chief Washington correspondent John Karl, and ABC News legal contributor Shauna Lloyd, as well as ABC News senior reporter Catherine Falders for more. John Santucci, what is Trump doing here that has the judge so frustrated?
Well, he's answering the questions, but then he's adding on a lot more. He's attacking the attorney general. He is attacking the judge. He's just making these offhanded comments. And what's interesting, and a note from our Olivia Rubin, who's sitting in the courtroom watching it all play out in real time, her reporting right now is that Trump is doing it, not raising his voice, clearly aggravating the judge at multiple points. The judge saying this is not a political forum. Stop giving speeches. He is striking comments from Donald Trump on the record, and Donald Trump smiling, enjoying what he's doing, clearly getting under the judge's skin. And look, we know from what our reporting has shown over the last couple of days that Donald Trump has grown angry and angrier about this case. We know that he did a prep session last night in Trump Tower before heading down to that courtroom. And as one source had said to me, Diane, that there's going to be two Donald Trumps that show up. One is just going to answer the questions and behave, or the other guy. And so far, less than an hour in, I think the other guy has clearly shown up and is clearly getting under this judge's skin.
And it's still funny. Again, this you can actually watch the trial, but it's amazing now that Donald Trump failed president-in-chief. I used to call him President Dorito for the last 2 years on this podcast. Failed commander-in-chief, multiple lawsuits, 3 federal indictments, and still somehow the front runner for the Republican nomination. But in court right now because he cooked the books. His COO for his Trump organization already pleaded guilty, served time. So if that tells you anything, matter of time. But to see Trump sit there and look like a dejected 5-year-old because he didn't get his snacks is possibly the most funniest thing to watch. But Again, guys, I keep saying this all the time. Even with his Manhattan trial, even with his Georgia trial, which he tried to basically overturn the votes there, even with his Mar-a-Lago, when they came in and took documents he wasn't supposed to have, even though he thought he could have, even with his sexual harassment case, which, by the way, ruled against him in his favor. And that's four cases. Four cases this man's following on, 3 of them federal indictments. And the reason why I say I keep hanging on federal indictments, because, again, if one of those federal indictments was to go against Trump and he's convicted, he's disqualified from being a presidential candidate, which would make the very same people that were just on the Republican debate not too long ago very happy. Although they'll probably make a lot of Trump MAGA fans mad because, they still believe somehow Trump is still the president, even though it's MAGA fans. Let's just leave it at that. Boy, to say it makes my heart warm and fuzzy to see him and hear him pissed. Yes, I feel bad for the lawyer. The lawyer, whoever is Trump's lawyer right now, who are lawyers, let's be honest. Number one, I hope you're getting paid, which I have to think so, because people are wondering how is Trump paying for his legal bills. He keeps fleecing his flock. People still keep giving him money. The PACs keep giving him money. At this point, the only thing keeping him flush is his flock. He's pretty much like your everyday preacher that has a mega church and is driving a Bentley and everybody else is driving 4 Pintos. Somebody's getting screwed over. That's all I'm saying. But again, this shouldn't be surprising that he just might go under. He might. But it's fun to watch on the way down. But speaking of his political opponents, which I wanted to get to really quickly, because I cannot stress this much about Uncle Tom / Tim Scott. Tim Scott, again, the only black man in the GOP, the only black man on the GOP running for the GOP nomination, is going to say, and I wish I could make this up, he wants America to focus less on race. I wish I could make this up. Presidential hopeful Tim Scott says that while he has talked about his openly on race, he believes that talking about race divides America more. He believes that because of critical race theory and other indoctrinated studies, such as African American studies, have led people to be very divisive on race, and therefore we weren't looking at race as heavily until these two things came along. You got to be, and forgive my language, you got to be fucking kidding me. Really? And it's amazing to me that Tim Scott, again, I call him Uncle Tom because Tim Scott is what, you know what Tim Scott is? Tim Scott is the Michael Orr of the Blind Side to GOP people. What I mean by that is he's their trophy black kid. Oh, he came from a single parent household in South Carolina. They didn't have a lot, but he pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He got a college education. He was able to run and get one of the very few Senate seats in South Carolina as a black man, as a Republican. He made his mama proud. He's exactly what we hoped you black people would do. That's exactly what it is. But Tim Scott, again, a man who might as well just be a napkin dipped in chocolate and shit, is going to sit there and tell us, Americans, we need to stop talking about race. This is a man who realized his campaign is not doing as well as he hoped, which I wouldn't be too far gone to sit there and say that Tim Scott may actually be suspending his campaign. The reason being is, well, white people are not going to vote for you. It's the one of the things I want to say so bad to him if I ever had the chance. What makes you think white people will vote for you? Especially on the GOP side. Oh, he kissed up to Trump. Yeah, but Trump endorsed. You notice that everybody Trump endorses has either lost or been in jail. And at the same time, you want to turn around and say, well, I like Tim Scott. He's a good man. Wait, Trump endorsed you? You might as well go ahead and hang it up now. But I don't expect Tim Scott. I mean, I'm surprised Tim Scott got this far for the third Republican debate. Again, the man has something to stand on. You know what Tim Scott's latest plan was? I keep bringing this up. You understand that Tim Scott, during the United Auto Workers strike, had sat there and quoted GOP's Jesus, Ronald Reagan, and sat there and said, if workers should strike, they should be fired. The UAW actually filed a complaint against him for that, as they should, because he does not believe in unions. He doesn't believe in anything but the free market capitalism of America. They talk about it like it's the holy spirit of the US. They really do. And again, with Tim Scott, again, he believes that, when it comes to education, that educators don't know what they're talking about, that parents should have more control over what is being taught to their kids. You can do that. It's called homeschool. You can teach whatever you want at home. But parents, unless you have a background education, unless you have actually taught a curriculum, unless you have actually presided over a school as a principal, maybe you should have a seat and shut the fuck up. But again, it's Tim Scott. Why are we surprised? The fact that he still thinks he can get a nomination from an all-white party is amazing to me. But he's not the only one. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name, it's also in hot water. Why? Because like a lot of these Republican opponents, they're all taking private speeches. These private donors, things of that nature, they usually come in, $250 to $300 a plate just to hear these people talk. Nikki Haley has sat there and said, I am not going to say what I've been saying in these private locations. And if you're a voter, that should kind of piss you off. Because the reason why I bring that up, does anybody remember Mitt Romney and his 47%? Mitt Romney, again, a man who may have won against Barack Obama. If it wasn't for somebody recording him at a private dinner where Mitt Romney said, the 47% of Americans out there who are minorities will never vote for someone like me. And when that got out, Mitt Romney had to sit there and say, well, yeah, that's about right. Kiss his presidential election goodbye. Why am I saying it's about Nikki Haley? Because she's the same way. Nikki Haley was a failed ambassador for the U.S. because she thinks she can talk about Ukraine, but really she hasn't done shit in that position when she was first there. She was a terrible representative, again, voting against women's rights and minorities. But yet, this is the same person that believes she can go ahead and clean up Congress. Right. And I'm a virgin. Hey, Kira. Looks like I came out of a pivotal moment. You kind of did. But I point this out, guys. When it comes to these Republican candidates, again, do your research. I'm only saying this for a simple point because I'm looking at it from the outside in. These are all people right now on debate that is still happening right now, as far as I know, because they're not debating against anybody on that stage. They're debating somebody who looks like an angry 5-year-old in court right now. That's it. They have to beat Trump, and Trump has yet to go to a debate. But as dumb and as old and as decrepit as he sounds, he made one good comment the entire time when asked about the debates. Why do I need to go? I'm leading in the polls. And before the debate, he was still leading in the polls, which goes to show you the field of GOP right now is that your choices are a black man that wants to be a white man, a Indian woman that changed her name to an American woman and wants to be accepted as an American white woman, Governor Christie, which, again, this is a man that flip-flopped worse than Mitt Romney, Vivek Ramaswamy, which is basically the next Donald Trump. They just, he wasn't a reality star. He just came out of nowhere. But those are your choices now. Because America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, dropped out. But that's the reason why Trump is sitting pretty. He's like, I don't have to attend an election. You guys got to beat me. And right now, my cult of crazy people will still vote for me and give me money. That alone should scream volumes about everything that's going on. Really should. But the last two couple stories, guys, we get to our feel good segment. Again, it is amazing to me that we go back to the war, that we are coming up again on a funding issue. President Biden wants to send a $14 billion package to the Ukraine and to Israel to fight both wars. Republicans have sat there and said, yeah, so if you want that, we got to talk about immigration. That's exactly the level. And I keep pointing this out for all those who keep saying, oh, Will, there's smart conservatives out there. Really? Because they're not elected. Because again, with the wars going on, I can understand Ukraine to a certain point. I cannot understand Israel. But Biden, because of all the times I've disagreed with him as a president, I just think that if you have $14 billion to send off to war, I think you can shave off student loans. I think you can raise the minimum wage. I think you can give another stimulus checks out. I think you can help out your own people first before you help out foreigners. That's all I'm saying. But Republicans, of all people, want to stand and say, well, if you're going to get this, we got to fix immigration. You ever notice that conservatives are always the main ones crying about immigration? We can't let those brown people over here. Why? Why is it that you can't let them over here? Well, because they're rapists. Who told you that? Well, they're terrorists. Who told you that? At the same time, we have more immigrants here who, by the way, started businesses, have actually organized voting, have done the jobs that a lot of people don't want to do. Last time I checked, the Napkins don't like farming much, especially when you see what they got to do. At the same time, what is the whole thing? We keep on talking about the American dream. We keep talking about Ellis Island out there in New York. Give me your tires, you're poor. And, you know, I can go, I mean, isn't that what's on Ellis Island? The first sentence, give me your tires, you're poor, you're going to live to breathe free. Isn't that what's on Ellis Island right now? And at the same time, conservatives are trying to train the laws out. Even when we had a resurgence from Mexico going into Texas, New Mexico, and California, we decided to build a fence and send armies. What we should have done was send medical immigration lawyers and judges, because much like the VA system, the immigration system is broken. At the same time, until it is fixed, they're going to keep bringing this thing up like an Uno reverse card. And trust me, the GOP doesn't want immigration fixed, because you know what happens? You get immigration fixed, you get legalized citizens who vote. And of course, the only time immigrants have ever voted against their interests was in Florida, where, you know, Governor Dictator Rick DeSantis was elected, and we all see how Florida regrets that decision terribly now. So, but they're going to hold this spending bill, saying that we're not going to agree to this until we get some laws in the books. Now, I know you guys are saying, well, this is just about the war. Here's the problem: the spending bill, which funds Congress, is coming back up very soon. And if we don't have an actual plan on how Congress is funded, a shutdown is imminent. Now, I keep on pointing this out. Here's what should tick off a lot of people. You understand, during the government shutdown, senators and representatives still get paid. Government workers don't. Senators and representatives still maintain their benefits. Government workers don't. Medicare and Social Security benefits still get paid out, but SNAP, food benefits, things of that nature get halted. So again, I keep pointing this out, that the people you shouldn't be mad at, because if you're a government worker, sometimes it's a great thing. Being a government worker means you do have guaranteed employment until there's a shutdown, and then you're out in the cold. Whereas the senator or representative can still be fine, be paid, get endorsements, and be all right. And this is why I keep bringing up the fact of the matter is, guys, not only with the presidential nomination coming up next year, the year after that, the midterms, where the House and the Senate get picked on. Not only that, but in your local areas. This is why I keep saying all the time to get informed about what's going on, not just federal, but local. Because once you do that, your perception on a lot of things are going to fucking change. And I mean that from the very bottom of my heart. Your perception of everything's going to change unless you're informed and stay informed and help people too. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you guys say? Tim Scott is the actualization of when Uncle Ruckus became mayor. That's fair. I'll give you that. But anyway, the last story we got, guys, is, again, I'm not surprised. Again, with the Republicans, I know I get heavy on the Republicans, but trust me, if you catch me on good days, I get Democrats too, because Democrats don't be making all the smart decisions either. But this week just has to be all Republicans. George Santos, a man who has shown that you do not need to be qualified to be elected to Congress. You didn't got to tell the truth. If you can sell that lie and make it sound as sweet as sweet potato pie, people will elect you. Today, Congress was supposed to either elect him to kick him out or basically vote to keep him in. Guess which one happened?
This hour out of Washington, D.C., the House has rejected a bid to expel Congressman George Santos from office. Lawmakers have decided to wait for the findings of both an ethics probe and a criminal trial against Santos. The effort to oust him was led by his fellow New York Republicans who say he is not, quote, fit to serve. The move failed to get the 2/3 majority it needed to pass. Santos pleaded not guilty to federal fraud.
Yeah, I can't stress that anymore. George Santos, a man who lied about where he went to school. He lied about every campaign he was a part of, even some GoFundMe's to where it was supposed to help. It was supposed to help war veterans, but really went to him. A man who has yet to be told the truth. Has yet told the truth. Anything he says is currently under an ethics investigation. And fellow Republicans sat there and said, "We need to get him out." The entire GOP said no. And I'll say this once, and I'll say this again. The GOP, as of right now, their only power in Congress is the majority of, their majority, albeit slim, is in the House of Representatives. They can't afford to lose a single seat. No matter how corrupted that person said to get there, they can't afford to lose them. Now, once this ethics investigation is over, the vote can be brought up again. But unless this man has done, again, there's only two ways he can be removed. The Speaker of the House could bring a vote to have him removed, or the crimes the Ethics Committee finds have to be so heinous that they have to override the Speaker of the House and immediately Capitol Police have to remove him from office. That's the only two ways he can be out. I'm curious to see what they're going to come up with, because as the GOP says, it's not about helping the people. It's about retaining power. So we really shouldn't be surprised by that. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on How the Frack we got here, we cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make things of faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We need something good this week. And hopefully this next story that I have will definitely make you feel good, put some good vibes in your system. I love to see when people who make a difference get rewarded and get acknowledged for it, because you should always be able to give your flowers to people while they're alive, in my opinion. And I came across a story on Good Morning America, and I thought I'd share this with y'all.
We have the man of the hour. We've been waiting to meet Vince. And you know what? He's right on the other side of this curtain. He's a writer, he's a poet, and he's an advocate for people with disabilities and disadvantages. He thinks he's here at the Hard Rock Cafe, to discuss his documentary, but of course, we couldn't make it easy for him. It's really not the event he thought it is or was, but he's about to get the surprise of a lifetime. So let's go find him. You guys open the curtain. Let's go. Open the curtain. Vince Pierce, Michael Strahan.
Oh,
is that you?
That's me.
Vince, I'm coming to you. Stay right there. Coming to you. I've been waiting to meet you.
Oh,
I have been waiting to meet you. How you doing, my friend? Great to see you.
Likewise.
I just want you to know you're here, you're Hard Rock, got your documentary, all these stuff going on. You think you're here for that? I'll be honest with you. It's kind of an elaborate plan that we had just to get you here, because you see the camera, wave to America. Wave to America right there.
All right.
You know what? You're on Good Morning America right now.
Right.
Live audience. They're looking at you, seeing your handsome face. So how you feeling? A little surprised?
Very.
Very surprised? Well, you know what? You're such a great guy, man. You're doing so much for so many people that we want to celebrate you. But we want to thank our friends here at Hard Rock for helping us get you here and making you think that you're here for something else that you're not. But right now, I'm going to steal you away We're going to go across the street to our Times Square studio because we want to celebrate you. A lot of people over there want to see you. You ready to go?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so how are you feeling right now since the surprise is wearing off?
Feeling great. I'm feeling great.
You still have no idea what's coming, do you?
Nah.
He has no idea, which is good. That means it's a good surprise. Well, in true GMA fashion, we have more surprises in store for you, and you're not here alone. You're not by yourself. Guys, everybody, come on out. All these people, your family, your friends, everybody is here for you, the co-workers. They all want to celebrate you, Vince. You deserve the celebration for all the inspiring work that you've done. But while they may know how great you are, they know we want the rest of the country to know how great you are. So let's take a look.
The most special thing about Vince is just his charisma. Vince is like actually the coolest person you've ever met.
When he enters the space, he commands attention.
He just smiles. He just lights up a room. And there's something really contagious about that.
Writer and musician Vincent Pierce turns his struggles into lessons through the Reality Poets, a group of gun violence survivors using poetry and art to advocate for those with disabilities and disadvantages.
Hit in the neck, I ain't even feel the burn, paralyzed instantly. Praying to God, please don't take me now. I got a little girl to look after, and I'm not trying to look after her from the sky.
In 2012, Vince was shot, leaving him wheelchair bound.
Slow down. Stop playing with them guns. Stop selling them drugs. But God is a forgiving God. So sit in this chair, my son. Learn life lessons. And know that life is a blessing.
Turning his pain into perseverance, Vince sharing his story in impactful ways, educating kids about the consequences of living a life on the streets.
I'm very proud of him because I don't know how I would have reacted in that situation. I'm very proud that he handled it and going on with his life and doing good things.
It means a lot to me that he's a leader in the community because a lot of communities don't really have someone they can look up to. For him to be that for people, and for me, it's a cool thing.
Now the director of Open Doors, a nonprofit working on gun violence prevention and disability justice. Vince is looked upon as a leader.
As soon as I come up with a new project, he's the first one that I call right away.
Vince is a great leader. I feel very good because he's one that speaks up. He's not afraid.
There's a presence about him. So when you speak to him, you feel the presence of him being incredibly present.
With his humor and humble voice, he continues to inspire all around him.
Vince definitely makes me a better person. I would say really just because he brings the best out of me. I don't want to let Vince down.
My dad inspires me, even though he has limitations. He showed me that anything's possible and you can do anything you put your mind to.
Thank you, V. You know you're my man. You know I'm your man. You know I got your back.
Vincent, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, Dad, I love you. I'm very proud of you and very glad to be here to celebrate you.
Now, Vince. I know this is a lot to take in, a little overwhelming moment for you, but how are you feeling right now?
Surprised.
Surprised?
Yeah.
You didn't know anybody else was here?
Nah.
Well, we saw your daughter, Natasia, in the piece, and she's here. Now, Natasia, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned from your dad?
To always surround myself with the right people and never allow myself to be peer pressured into anything.
That's a great lesson. Same thing I got from my father as well. And you know what? Great lessons to listen to. And you know, your daughter's here. All these people are here, and they've been keeping this a secret from you. And you have no idea that something big is about to happen. You know what? We're going to make sure that this surprise and that you being stunned is worth it, my friend, because we know funding is very difficult for your organization, to come by. So we have these friends. They're at the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation. They have been so impressed by you and all the work that you do, and they want to help your cause. So some of your friends are here to help us out. So I'm going to ask them to flip the cards There you go, Fred. Flip the cards. The Craig H. Nielsen Foundation is going to donate $10,000 to your foundation. What could $10,000 do for you?
It can do a lot. It can help us go in schools. It can help us continue to work in the community.
Continue the good work in the community, the great work in the community that you're doing. You know, Vince, $10,000 is nice, right? It's a lot of money. Yeah. I think we're missing a zero. Yeah, we're missing. They're going to do $100,000 for you. Now, how would $100,000 change your work? It left you speechless.
Yeah,
left you speechless. Which I get that. I get that. You know, $100,000. That's pretty good. Yeah. Pretty good. But hold on. Hold on. Hearing something from the control room. Vince, take a look at the jumbotron up there. But wait, there's more. What could that be? $1 million. The Craig H. Nielsen Foundation is going to give you $1 million because they always look for leaders who want to improve the world for spinal cord injuries, and they want to support you in your mission of what you're doing, Vince. The $1 million is going to you and your foundation. So, how is it? You thought 10,000 was helping, 100,000 was helping. How is $1 million going to change your mission and going to change your life and really help your foundation and all the work you do?
Man, I can't even. Yeah, I'm lost for words.
You know, I can understand.
It can really help us, help my fellow team.
Yeah.
It can really, yeah.
Well, you know what? I understand you're lost for words, but I can tell the past you have, because the first thing you thought about, you looked at what you call your team over here. We're so grateful that you all are here. And everything that you're doing is amazing work. And you should be very proud. You have a beautiful daughter who you're passing all these great lessons on to. And there are people at home watching GMA this morning who are learning so much about you, but also learning so much about the hard work and the great work that you're doing to help so many other people out there. So Vince, we celebrate you. You deserve this $1 million. And it has been a special morning for us here with you and your family and your friends, Vince. And we really appreciate you. And we want everybody at home to learn more about you and what you do. And you know what? You can check out the documentary featuring Vince called Fire Through Dry Grass. It premieres on October the 30th. Vince Pierce, thank you, my friend. Thank you all for coming out here. Appreciate you helping us celebrate Vince. Now up to you guys in the studio.
I don't care what nobody says. Number one, that is a great piece. And damn it, Laney, you beat me to it. Vince Pierce, which again, his special is on PBS. You can still watch it. You know, it's October 30th. I know it's a little outdated, but it's still out there for you to watch. Let me say the best. Look, I don't know what Mr. Pierce was on, but my man was late. Oh, if you was having a bad day, you wouldn't know. But again, I just want to give, like I said, we have to start giving flowers and props to those out there that whatever they're doing, they're making an impact. And he definitely was doing that. Yes, it was definitely incredibly heartwarming, especially the fact that, you know, him being a community advocate, helping so many people, and getting a $1 million donation is a great thing. I keep saying this all the time, and I will not stop saying this. Give people their flowers to those that make an impact now. Don't wait till you see a casket. Actually tell them there's no harm in giving people their flowers now that we should be doing. But we definitely want to show Mr. Pierce off in that light. So that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. I do thank you all who liked, who watched, who shared this, commented. Lainey, Kira, Osmond, I certainly appreciate all of you guys. Some shameless plugs before we do get out of here. I do want to shout out my boy Vaughn at Big BZA Dot. You can definitely catch him, Big BZA Dot, on all social media for beats, for skits, things of that nature. He actually has helped me out with some new music, which I do have to get up on this podcast eventually. But definitely check him out, Big VZA Dot, on all social media. Also, with that being said, guys, you guys like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime? Ever been annoyed when they start pulling stuff, or my personal favorite, when they start jacking up prices? Ever wondered that why can you actually have something out there that is actually for the people? Well, I can tell you that right now. Blur Station. You can actually go here, blurrstation.com. Me and others have actually joined this place. Again, it is a place for us, by us, with new content, such as Issue 1, hosted by Hellspawn Cosplay, to actually get new creators out there to get their first issue published. Great things out there as well. Now, the beauty about Blur Station is, guys, right now is just for going on right now. If you were like, I'll click over here, we click to join now. It's $10.99 a month. Yes, $10.99 a month. It's the one thing about Blur Station, you can still get a membership and still get food. That's a big thing. You can't watch streams and not be hungry. You got to eat and stream at the same time. But if you guys do go to this, definitely pick on the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership for me and my crew. From there, you can find my name under there or others. It does not matter who you select, as long as it's letting you know that you show love. And the beauty thing about the Affinity membership, which I want to say really quickly, the Affinity membership basically means that for $10.99 a month, for 36 months, if you stick with us for 36 months, you will get something that Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney will never offer you: ownership. That's right. At 36 months, you get a piece of Blur Station. And trust me, it is growing, especially the fact that the SAG-AFTRA just actually reached a tentative deal with the the corrupt movie studios. Let's just call it what it is. Too many acronyms saying one night. But again, definitely check them out, blurrstation.com. Definitely hit up the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership to help us out. And again, enjoy the wonderful content that's there. I cannot stress that enough, because we definitely need something of our own. Blur Station is definitely it. That being said, guys, of course, Black Fox 447, where you can find me on all the socials. I usually do reviews on everything, including gym stuff. We can do a couple of push-ups. And you guys heard me speak about Blurred's Eye View. It's a funny thing you should say that, because two of my people that I run with on that show, Lady and Kira, are also part of Blurred's Eye View. You can definitely check us out, Blurred's Eye View, on Facebook, on YouTube, and even Twitch. We're everywhere. We're growing, and we're also on Blur Station. So definitely check us out there, guys. At the same time, all of my podcast, guys, are that link at the bottom. Let me just make that a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link in your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack Got Here, Give It Podcast. Of course, off of this podcast, you can definitely like, share, and subscribe. Make them thing grow. Also, make it 3. Oh, Tafari jumped in. Tafari TV, definitely check him out. Tafari TV on all socials as well. But again, with that link, guys, like it, share it, and again, with everything that we talked about tonight, my big thing is I'm a big conversation person, which means I want to keep the combo going. The only rule I have, keep it simple. Let the facts tell the truth. And again, it is completely okay to agree to disagree. Now, granted, there are things out there that there should be no disagreements on. That's fine. But for everything else, there's room to agree to disagree. The thing about it is, you come in knowing a lot more than what you came in going out. That's the big thing I can say about that. Osman, any credible news outlets that you recommend? Really, to be honest with you, there's actually a lot out there. For me, I always stick with the ones that actually have the Nielsen Award, which basically journalism. So just really quickly, if you go by 3 main channels, because every 3 main channels, ABC News, NBC, CNN. You can also go by addictinginfo.com. You can actually go by Politico. You can go by PolitiFact, which again was highly recommended for the fact they're looking for research-based truth evidence in anything that's published. So again, if you want more, I'll definitely reach out to you and give you my entire list that I go through. It's like 50 different sites, but I'll give that to you if you ask. But with that being said, guys, again, I cannot thank you enough for everybody that liked, that watched, let people know about this. As we're wrapping this up, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to basically correct the decisions that we got wrong, but try to make them right. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman to literally be the first Black national cybersecurity director. And if Congress gets their shit together, we actually may have our first commanding Black officer of the Air Force. If that depends on Tommy Tuberville, but I digress. Again, guys, what we don't learn from history, we are doing repeat. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up on our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Again, like, share, repeat. Check out Blur Station. Check out Safari TV. Check out Blurred's Eye View. Check out Roomful of Blurs. Check out Geek by Heart. I have got to get a better outro than this. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay informed because voting matters. I cannot stress that enough. If you do not vote, they will find a way to take it away from you. So vote and be heard. Be active or be quiet. Take care of yourselves and each other, guys. We're out of here. Peace.